Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 263rd episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter at HawkBlogger. I am on Threads as well at HawkBlogger, although I think I've made 2 posts on there. And I guess, Dayna, I can't even say I'm on Twitter anymore. I'm on X.
No, it still says twitter.com. So I refuse to change until we're forced.
I don't know. Like, I am very perplexed by that as someone who works in tech as well. The product side of, I'm already troubled by the fact that Facebook changed to Meta, which I thought was an absolutely stupid bet in the first place. I'm not a big metaverse guy, but anyway, I still call them Facebook. I'm going to probably forever call it Twitter. And I don't think I will ever call them Zeets instead of tweets.
Well, now he's being sued for copyright infringement, so he might have to change it back.
No. Okay. You can tell how closely I've been following this. We've got a fun show tonight. This has been a show that's been long in the making, and it's potentially going to get more fun if we can find a way to get intoxicated Evan Hill to join from his road trip, wherever he is, because, Jeff at Real Jeff Simmons, Dayna O'Gorman at Dayna OG. We talked about this literally last week. We're like, you know, who'd be fun to have on the show? There's a guy that we think would be fun to have on the show. I'm not going to name him yet. I'm going to introduce him in a second. We're going to bring him on. And reached out. We're like, hey, dude, let's see if we can make this happen. He graciously agreed to do so. And this is someone from beyond enemy lines. So folks that have been following us on X know who the name is. But I'm going to tell you a little bit of information about this person. This is from a lot of research I did at what I think is a very reputable website. This tells me that he was born in 1988 in Oakland, California. He's 34 years old. Zodiac sign is Capricorn. It tells me that he was born in the United States and holds the nationality of American. Okay, so this is important for people to know. He was enrolled in the Montera School and graduated from University of California, Los Angeles, with reportedly a Bachelor of Arts in English. He has a mother and father whose names are Mr. Cohen and Mrs. Cohen, according to this website. And most importantly, potentially, this says he is 5'7" and weighs 132 pounds. And wears a size 8 shoe. So if you haven't figured out who this is by now, this is Grant Cohn. How much of that did we get right, Grant?
Most of it, but I'm 6'1", 172 pounds. That's not fair at all. Hold on, we need to set the record straight.
I loved this idea of you being 5'7". Like, was there a point in your life where you were 5'7" and 132 pounds?
In 7th grade. Yeah.
For people that don't know the real,
how did they know my parents' names though? That was scary.
That was a little spooky, right? Like, have you checked security cams? There might be people spying on you if they know that kind of detail.
You know, it's funny. I met up with a friend of mine in New York like a couple weeks ago, and he's like, "I read this really weird article about you. They knew everything about you, but some things were. It's that one. Yes. Who wrote that? Was it like AI or something? Probably.
It may be. I will send you the link.
Yeah, it's scary.
I looked at your background, like starting as a blogger on the Cohn Zone, and then you were on CSNBayArea.com. You worked at the Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Honestly, like that was all like worth knowing, but that wasn't nearly as fun as Mr. and Mrs. Cohen and you being 5'7", 132. So went with that instead.
Oddly specific, not 133.
No, I know, right? I think my like left leg is maybe 132 at this point, but we'll decide about that.
I like how you tried to build suspense. Like the title of the show isn't called Special Crossover Against Grant Cohn. I like that a lot. It's kind of like Oppenheimer trying to make you be like, how is World War II gonna end?
You know,
I don't know.
Our listeners aren't always the brightest, and they don't always pay attention to the details.
Brian.
Our patrons, though, are like among the smartest.
There you go.
So for folks that haven't already, if you haven't already liked the show, please click like, click subscribe. This is the kind of content you get. And obviously go to patreon.com/hawkblogger, sign up, get immediate access to the Slack channel. where we talk all the time, and we will continue that conversation going forward. So, Grant, we've got a lot to cover with you. And the first,
I know why you brought me on the show. First of all, can I just cut you off and say I know why you brought me on the show? Because you think I'm going to talk crap about the Niners, and you want it. You like it. You want it. You want it. You like it, don't you?
No. See, this is a good question. No. What we noticed about you, Grant, is that you remind us of one of our own.
Okay.
Evan Hill, who we mentioned earlier. He trolls the Seahawks fans and the 49ers fans pretty regularly.
I respect it. Someone's got to do it.
And you seem to walk a line with 49ers fans where there's a lot of love and a lot of hate. And so we're like, we got to bring Grant on and talk the real. And that's really why you're here.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So the first thing I got to ask, because I also read something about you, is that I think this was from you.
Okay.
Are you a 49ers fan?
No. I grew up one. But my dad's a sports writer, and he always if you ever get in the business, you can't be a fan. And then when you do get in the business and you're in the locker room and you see how much those players really don't like you, it's like, oh, I'm not rooting for you. Like, you ain't rooting for me. So no.
That's what I thought. So you don't consider yourself a fan. No. There's another 49er press member who sure seems like a fan. I don't know if you found that certain members of the media are more fans than others.
None of them are supposed to be fans. Like if you're credentialed, you're supposed to be, a journalist, and you're supposed to be speaking truth to power and not just accepting all their narratives and actually questioning them. But most fans don't want that. So I think a lot of journalists just try to give fans what they want.
So why do you do what you do? Like, you could do a bunch of different things. Like, how did you end up doing this?
Well, my dad did it, and I love my dad's like my best friend, and we get along so well. And I always loved the process and the lifestyle. And when I was 20, I felt like he was kind of winding down at 60, and the internet was popping up. And I was like, Dad, we could make this an empire, man. Like me and you. And I really felt I could do what he did. And I tried to sell articles to Sports Illustrated. I did sell one, but no one reads anymore. So it was just a fruitless endeavor. And it took a literal global pandemic to figure out hey, there's this thing called StreamYard, and maybe people would rather watch. And ever since I put those things together, my life, I have a house and a car. And before I had freaking nothing. I was working for the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, and they were friend zoning me. They were like, yeah, we'll give you $1,000 a month and you can cover the team, but that's it. And I was like, thanks, until I was 32. So it was rough. I didn't think it was going to work out, but I just wanted to do what my dad did. And now I'm my dad's like, how are you making all this money? I never made any money. He's like, yeah, because you worked for a newspaper. You needed YouTube, Dad. So that's how it happened.
What was the big so you said the pandemic was a turning point, but what took off for you? Was it Twitter? Was it your podcast? Was what kind of?
I think I'm a jerk in print. I think I come across as a jerk. And I think when I do my thing on camera, people can see me smiling or something, and they're like, okay, I like him a little bit more. I think they just hate me when I write. And I think I was covering the team for 10 years, and I was slamming the Niners all the time, and I didn't take off at all. I think they needed to I think I need to be on video, I guess.
How does not everybody seems to like you on video. I've seen the Javon Kinlaw video, which I'm sure everyone asks you about. First of all, fill people in that don't know that story a little bit, and
okay.
And then how was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was cool. So the Niners had DeForest Buckner. They traded him during the pandemic. They traded him for the pick that became Javon Kinlaw, which was never fair to him. And I was always against that move. How do you trade your best player for someone with a knee problem who's so I was pretty much bagging on that pick for years. And it was during the pandemic, so we were in the locker room. I never met him. So last year, first day of OTAs, he walked over to me, and it was the first time I've ever been face to face with him. And he I thought he was joking around, and he smacked the hat off my head, and I was like, oh, he's not joking around. And it escalated all day. Yo, Should I keep going? Anyway, he came on my show at night and we got in this whole like fight and stuff. And the next day, John Lynch called us into his office like he's Barack Obama. Like, why don't we just settle it over beers? Although we weren't, but like we had to like talk it out. And then ever since then, we're cool. But I mean, it was so bad. I was closing on a house and my freaking like the guy who was working on it, like called me. He's like, hey, I just heard about you on the radio. Are we good? I was like, man, what the fuck you mean? Are we good? Like, yeah, we're good. You think I'm going to get fired? Is that what you're asking? You want to know if I'm going to get fired? So it was kind of scary.
Well,
I think Javon's a good guy. I like Javon Kinlaw. I just didn't know him. We had to get to know each other.
Dayna was literally eating popcorn while you were telling that story. So that's always a good sign. I will welcome to the show, Evan Hill, who only drinks apparently socially once a week now, is what I've been told.
Socially and on work trips. Okay. Work trips.
And heavily.
And
where are you?
I'm in Salt Lake City right now, man.
That's where the fun is. Let's go.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm here
Let's go.
Grant, Salt Lake City is kind of boring. I'm going to be honest.
That was the joke. That was the joke.
Okay, that was the joke.
That was the joke. Yeah,
I was like, there's no way you're serious that Salt Lake City is fun because this place is very mid. It's very
no shit, Evan. Salt Lake City's boring.
I'm impressed that you managed to get alcohol there. It's not an easy thing to get more than a drink there.
Yeah, corporate stuff. It's private catering. It's all good.
So I got to ask one more question, then I'm going to open up for other folks here. What I've seen you posting and kind of shit posting about the 49er quarterback situation quite a bit.
Wouldn't you?
I honestly, so here's the deal. Honest truth. I think Brock Purdy is really good. And I'm pretty much like, fuck, the 49ers just got their franchise QB at the last pick in the draft after totally screwing the pooch on trading for the first pick. And I think I think that's what a lot of 49ers fans think as well. I think you think something totally different.
Well, he did get seriously injured. I'm curious to see what he looks like post UCL surgery. But if he were on the Seahawks, would he start?
Over Geno?
Would he start?
No chance.
No. So, like, how good is he really? Is he like the 25th best quarterback in the league? Like, great, sweet. That's dope. You got that dude with the last pick in the draft. Respect. But, like, I don't know.
That's what you think.
I don't know.
He's 25th.
So wait, do you think Trey Lance has a fair shot at starting?
No, I don't. I think they should let him go and let him go to a coach like Pete Carroll. I think Pete would be perfect for him. He needs a guy who believes in him, straight up. And I don't know that Kyle does. Like, Kyle brought him on the team. When they traded up for him, it was like, oh, this is a very confident move. This is going to work. Kyle's an offensive coach and he believes in Trey. But ever since that move, like, he's just been real lukewarm about it. Trey just needs someone who's like Jim Harbaugh, Pete Carroll, Andy Reid, someone who's like, I believe in you and I'm me and I have a track record. He'd be perfect for the Seahawks.
So just to be clear, you're advocating that Trey Lance be a Seattle Seahawk.
Hell yeah. I don't root for the 49ers. I root for their demise. They're a damn shame. They get wet. Like, they are the premier franchise on the West Coast. The Seahawks should be. Frankly, the Seahawks since 2012 have been the premier franchise on the West Coast, but the Niners get all the press because of stuff they did in the 80s and 90s. Am I wrong?
You're wrong about the fact they've been the Seahawks have been the premium franchise on the West Coast since like 2000. Since they entered
the NFC. Yeah, you're right. Because the Niners have been freaking dismal. Yeah, you're right. But so like, where's the media for you guys? Like, how come Geno Smith isn't getting hyped up? If Geno Smith were on the 49ers, do you know what they'd be like Dak Prescott. The Niners are the Cowboys, essentially.
Do you think?
I'm just getting
Dayna, Jeff, do you agree with that? Like, I don't think Geno. I think everyone's skeptical about Geno because of the years before, not because he's in Seattle.
Yeah, but like, if he were on the Niners or the Cowboys, everyone would be like, "Oh, franchise quarterback." On the Seahawks, they're like, "I don't know," because they don't watch you guys.
No,
when are you guys on national television?
That's true, but like, so if you were just being objective here, as much as you ever are, do you think that Trey Lance should be the starting quarterback or who do you think the starting quarterback should be for the 49ers?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess Brock earned it to a degree with what he did last year, but then he hurt himself. And like, it feels like they're rushing him back. Did you hear what happened today? John and Kyle spoke and they're like, Brock's fully cleared. He's back. He's going to be playing, 2 out of every 3 days in camp. Like, he just had the surgery 4 months ago. It seems a little aggressive. It seems like the prudent move would be to put him on PUP, take your time and let Trey start and go from there. But I don't think they're committed to Brock either. I think they want to force Brock on the field, see what he has. If he flops, they're going to sign Kirk Cousins next year. Watch that happen. You think the powers that be can keep Kyle Shanahan and Kirk Cousins away from each other? They're destined to work together again. It's going to happen.
Be crazy to me if they traded all this for Trey Lance, then they get Brock Purdy who blows up. Then they bring in Sam Bradford, or not? Yeah, right? No, Darnold. Thank you. I was like,
can we call him Sam Bradford just because? Like,
holy shit, that's not wrong.
It doesn't matter.
And then they bring in Kirk Cousins after that.
I mean,
Niner fans eat it up. They're like, wow, this is 4D chess right here. Niner fans just eat it up, man. What's crazy is this is a team with 5 Super Bowl championships, and they're just all invested in Kyle Shanahan's legacy now. Like, who cares about his freaking legacy? That guy has nothing but loser written all over him. Sorry, Kyle, but like you've had double-digit leads in 2 Super Bowls in the second half and lost both of them. That's your legacy. And Niner fans are out here being like, man, this dude is the next Belichick, man. Just wait. It's crazy.
I'm going to step back. I'm going to give you and Evan. I want you and Evan to talk about who has the best coach.
You don't like Pete Carroll. Fair enough. Okay. You could go. Because Pete Carroll has his major drawbacks. His offensive coordinators perennially suck. Always. That offense you got in Seattle is just vanilla. Always. Mm-hmm. But at least you don't have a bunch of turnovers. You got to give him that. Kyle is a turnover machine.
Who's the best?
Sorry, Evan, you go.
NFC West.
You go, Evan.
I think it's Sean McVay, man.
What's the ranking then? Give me the ranking.
I think it goes Sean McVay, Sean McDaddy, number 1. Kyle Shanahan, number 2. Pete Carroll, and then whoever the fuck the Cardinals just hired.
What is your ranking, Grant?
I'm gonna go motherfucking Pete. Sorry, I shouldn't curse on your channel.
You can say
I'm gonna go Pete Carroll 1.
Okay.
McVay 2, Kyle 3, and then whoever is in Arizona. I feel like Kyle gets too much credit. Like everyone says the Niners have the best roster. They have the best everything, the best defense, the best weapons, the best coach. Why haven't they won? What is the problem? And locally, they're like, well, they've just had such bad luck. What? It's football. Injuries happen. Don't tell me about bad luck. Finish the deal. You couldn't get it done in Atlanta. You can't get it done here. When you get it done, I'll crown you. But McVay got it done. Carroll got it done. There's something to be said about that. So those two have to be ahead of Kyle. There's no excuses for this guy. He's got the team. He's had the team for like 4 years. Get it done now. I don't know. I'm picking the Seahawks to win the division this year, not the 49ers. It's a good young team. Pete Carroll knows what to do with young players. I like that team. They got a better offensive line and a better quarterback than the Niners. Start right there.
So Grant, let me ask you a question. Niners make a deep playoff run this year. Is Kyle Shanahan on the hot seat?
No, they love him out here, man. They want to give him a freaking lifetime contract.
I'm not saying
I would have traded him already. To me, he's worth. Oh, go ahead.
Grant. I'm saying should he be?
I think he should be. I think they should absolutely look at him as a kind of guy who built this, but may not be able to put him over the top, a la Tony Dungy in Tampa when we were kids, right? Tony Dungy, great coach, but was he ever going to win the Super Bowl with Tampa? Maybe not. He went to Indianapolis, got Peyton Manning, and won there. That could be Kyle. He could be the kind of guy who's like, man, you built this, all credit to you, but you're not going to take this team to the promised land. Go somewhere else, win there, and let someone else finish the job that you started. I could see that being the case because, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing at quarterback at all. And that's a fairly important position. End of story for Kyle Shanahan. I love your running backs. I love your weapons. I love your defense. I love everything. Who is your freaking quarterback? And he's like, that's a good question. I just don't know the answer to that. It's year 7, man. You passed on Mahomes. You passed on Brady. You passed on Stafford. You could have made a play for Lamar Jackson this year. I mean, you're so casual about this. Like, at what point are Niner fans and Niner ownership going to say, Kyle, like, you don't have a plan at the most important position? You're gaslighting all of us. But no one says that. I don't know.
Do you think he and John Lynch are on the same page in that position?
No.
Do you think that's part of the issue?
Yes. I think John Lynch loved Jimmy. I think Kyle wanted Jimmy the hell out. I think Kyle wanted trade. John didn't want him. I think John loves Brock, and Kyle's like, what about Sam Darnold? Like, I think the fact that they don't agree at all is a big problem with the 49ers. Because the original plan was wait for Kirk Cousins. Then John came in halfway through the season, let's trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, and Kyle's like, okay. And then Kyle freaking hated Jimmy Garoppolo despite him winning all of his freaking games. And Kyle's like, let's trade for Trey Lansing. And John's like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, and they've been doing that power struggle for years. You can't win a Super Bowl like that. I just don't think you can. Do the Seahawks have crap like that going on? I don't think they do.
They don't have crap like that going on. Well, I will say last year's one of the closest things that came was John was a Drew Lock guy, and the coaches were like, no, Geno's the guy. And that was not a well-publicized thing, but like when Pete named Geno the starter in like preseason game number 3 before even leaving and going back to Seattle, front office wasn't thrilled about that. Like, so there's been some, but it's very minor. But at the same time, Kyle, like, no matter who's back there, has managed to always make them successful, put weapons around them, makes everybody, like, utilizes everybody. And I don't know, that Trent Williams trade, that by itself kept that franchise afloat, because I thought that was going to be their downfall. And then they pull out the best offensive lineman in the league out of their hat. And I think that changed the trajectory of that whole thing. If they didn't have Trent Williams, I really wonder what the 49ers would look like the last few years.
Yeah, because really he's the only offensive lineman you care about on the entire team. And it's like, it's funny. The two offensive geniuses that most people would say in the league are Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan. Mm-hmm. And I think they have very different philosophies on offense. Andy Reid feels like what you need is a franchise quarterback, a legitimate weapon, a guy who can run and throw all areas of the field, challenge all areas of the field, and a great offensive line. Maybe that's not what he's always had, but that's what he has in Kansas City now. The weapons, he can draft weapons. He can find weapons, like, no problem. Kyle, he's like, forget the quarterback. Forget the offensive line. Just give me the best defense and the best weapons and the best left tackle in the league. Like, really? Because what happens every year is your quarterback gets hurt. What happens every year is your offensive line freaking stinks. And when you go against teams like Philly and Dallas, you get punked in the trenches, which is where games are won and lost. So I would much rather build my offense the way Andy Reid does. Like, man, just give me the offensive line and protect my franchise quarterback. We'll figure out the rest because I'm so freaking smart. I'm so smart. Give me a second-round pick and wide receiver. I'll work it out. But Kyle's like, no, I need Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle and Kyle Juszczyk. It's like, okay, well, I think a lot of coaches could, put up numbers with those guys, but can you keep your quarterback healthy? No. And here's the thing. They got all their quarterbacks hurt last year. What do? Do they make their offensive line better this year? No. They got more quarterbacks.
That is a great point.
They're counting on more quarterback injuries. Point.
I wanted to ask you about that because, Kyle Shanahan is just, the product of Mike Shanahan, and Mike Shanahan likes to ruin quarterbacks' careers by playing them until
did it to
broken.
RG3.
Yeah, destroyed.
Did it to RG3.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, now you're watching San Francisco, right? And what do? Break a quarterback over and over and over again. It's almost like they really do not care about the position. It's a little crazy. And yet at the same time, you see the other teams around the league that are $200 million guaranteed, whatever the hell it may be. And Shanahan can't even keep him on the damn field. I never understood the thought process of it. It makes no
Dayna,
sense.
All the rules protect the quarterback. It's easier than ever to protect a quarterback. And this dude is flummoxed. He's like, man, I went through 4. He was playing Josh Johnson in the NFC Championship game, and that wasn't enough. He needed a 5th quarterback, Dayna.
Yeah.
Dayna. And he call him a genius. And I'm sitting here being like, wait a second, like he does certain things really well. I can't deny that, but like, can't we all agree that he's got some serious gaps at the most important position? I don't know, man.
And then you have to wonder about Brock Purdy. It's like, yeah, he has this great quarterback. Does he, or did he have a great defense that kept points off the field the other way? So he managed to actually win some of these games. It's so baffling to me that the defense, because I'm a defense lover, I could give two craps about quarterbacks. I think they're overrated. But here's the thing. I think that this defense, all anyone talks about is quarterback because it's such a disaster when you have the best defense in football. You know what I mean? But he's an offensive-minded coach. It makes no sense to me. And then every defensive coordinator he has leaves for a head coaching job. So you have to start all over, and they're still just as good.
So he has this issue protecting his quarterback, so he spends his first pick on a safety. Cool, he's a good safety. He spends his second pick on a kicker. Hilarious. Like hilarious. He's such a troll. You gotta love that. Kicker. Gotta love.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, one of the things I've never understood about Shanahan and Evan's boyfriend McVay, when these guys are like these progressive offensive minds, but in like the fourth quarter with like timeouts, these guys
conservative.
All the time. Like, what is going
Punts.
on? It's
because I feel like they're actually very much extensions of Mike Shanahan.
Yeah.
And Mike Shanahan's an old school conservative coach. And like they try to make these kids seem like they're so cutting edge. Like, man, they're just Mike Shanahan with like jet sweeps and motions thrown in. Like it's just a little bit of an updated version of a 1997 version of football. I really feel like the Shanahan tree of football is so overhyped, man. Like, why can't we? No one talks about the Andy Reid tree. I mean, Nick Sirianni, Doug Peterson. It seems like those guys are more successful than actually like the Shanahan. All they have to talk like to hang their hat on is McVay one time. That's it. That's it.
It worked, though. It worked.
Do you remember that Rams-Niners NFC Championship, like the fourth quarter of that game where they're punting on 4th and 1, and it seemed like both coaches were
inside the other team's territory and stuff? It's like, wow, that's aggressive. Nice.
Grant, I saw you, like Mina Kimes came out and had Shanahan like number 2 coach in the league, and your tweet was like, well, he's got McCaffrey, Kittle, Ayuk, Samuel, Trent Williams. Like, what a genius. Like, I had the same reaction of you, so I was happy to see that. But, like, it's a national
guy with the best team and no rings is the second best coach in the league. Like, man, can we wait a year? Can we let him win the damn thing first before we put him on? I'll put him number 2 if he actually accomplishes something. It just reminds me of, like, 10 years ago when everyone was willing to call. Remember when people were saying Colin Kaepernick was going to be the greatest quarterback of all time?
Oh my God.
It's like, can he accomplish that first? Like, maybe. Can he like actually accomplish that first before we just crown him? People are so quick, man. People really like to be the first person. And I don't know why Kyle Shanahan is like that cult figure in the NFL where everyone who thinks he knows something about football is like, hey, man, yeah, but Kyle is that guy. Like, I guess maybe one day, but
it's because of a name they know. That's it. It's like name recognition. That's it.
I agree.
I
agree.
It's not. I'll tell you what it is for me. When I watch football games every weekend, and I watch the Seahawks the most, and the Seahawks are fighting and clawing to complete a friggin' screen pass or to find somebody that isn't like a tight window throw, and Kyle Shanahan, year after year, his quarterbacks are throwing to wide open spaces. Yeah, guys that are not. These are not tough throws.
That's what it is.
Purdy did not have to make a lot of tough throws, and anyway, so that for me, all by itself.
The highlights look good. The highlights look good.
He schemes up run and pass well. He's not one-dimensional. So like I look at his offense and I'm like, damn, it would be nice to have that. Geno makes some throws that I don't think anyone on the 49ers roster can make. But
he'd be a nice offensive coordinator to have under Pete Carroll.
What's that?
He'd be a nice offensive coordinator to have under Pete Carroll, but you don't want him to be your head coach.
That's why Dan
want him to be your head coach.
That's why Dan Quinn's first hire was Kyle Shanahan, and they should have won a Super Bowl.
That was a good hire. But Dan needed to step up in the second half and say, Kyle, run the motherfucking ball right now. But Dan Quinn didn't do that, and that's his fault too.
Yes.
That's his fault too. He needed to do that. You're the head fucking coach, Dan, not Kyle. Because when you have someone over Kyle telling him what to do, he might actually be, what you want him to be. But you leave him to his own devices, he'll fuck it up. I'm sorry. Evan's loving it right now. Sorry. Run the fucking ball. They were up 28-3, Evan. 28-3. What the fuck is your problem? Sorry, I love you, man. I'm gonna see you tomorrow. But like, what? How did that fucking happen? I'm not drunk. I'm drinking LaCroix.
This is exactly the show I thought was gonna happen. I don't know what's in there. I see what's on the can, but I don't know what's in there.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, Evan loves your boy. He loves Kyle Shanahan. I look at the 49ers roster, and I don't think it's close whether the Seahawks or 49ers have a better roster. The 49ers have a significantly better roster than Seattle. That's what I will deny it if 49ers fans come at me, but
I'm picking the Seahawks to win this division. I don't give a shit. I'm picking the Seahawks.
So
I like the Seahawks tackles.
Grant, like I look at the Seahawks, I see a defensive line that is thin.
Brian.
Yes.
Name the 49ers starting right tackle right now. Go. Name him.
I don't know him.
McKinsky or something like
McKinley?
McKinsky? Did I hear a Niner in there? Were you trailing off a little bit? What? Who?
Isn't it like Colton McKivitz, maybe?
Yes! You got it. Who the hell is Colton McKivitz? He wouldn't start for the Seattle Seahawks.
No.
He wouldn't start for the Arizona Cardinals. That guy is starting for the 49ers.
Yeah, but Trent Williams is better than all 5 Seahawks offensive linemen combined.
It's one guy, though. It's a whole line.
It's
a whole line.
On the offensive line, though.
Right tackle is a very important position.
I think it's
extremely important.
That was shocking to me that's what their plan was at that position. And I think that one move might be one of the biggest swings in the division and in the conference that nobody else other than maybe you is talking about, because all you need is one side of your line or one part of your line to be a problem. And then all of a sudden, guess what? George Kittle is having to stay in more to help cover that. And all of a sudden he's out of the routes, or you can't run the sweep to that side with Debo or someone else because they're getting blown into the backfield. Like that one position can absolutely. And if that offense gets 15% less effective and it puts more pressure on that defense. And the other thing that they didn't do, they did not address the cornerback position on the 49ers. Like, I look at the 49ers coverage and like Jared Stidham, I think put up like 400 yards against them last year and ran for first downs and stuff. I mean, I'm looking at the Seahawks trio of receivers right now, and I'm like, yeah, I feel good about that. So it's not that I don't see where the Seahawks have positives, but man, if I look at that 49ers roster and it's still, there's a bunch of wrecking balls on that team.
It's a really good team. It's a really good team, but you gotta forget the Niners in the regular season. They could beat you every time in the regular season, but if you face them in January, who's their quarterback? Who's their quarterback going to be at that point? I don't know. I feel like the Seahawks their defense was terrible last year. It was just bad, but
it was so bad.
They got Bobby Wagner back. Their secondary is freaking really good, unless Witherspoon isn't. I think he's going to be really good. I mean, can you stop the run? Maybe, but does that really determine who wins and loses that much in the NFL anymore? You have an offense, you have a quarterback who can air it out. Now you have the best deep thrower in the league. Now you just added another first-round pick at wide receiver. Niners can't push the ball more than 20 yards down the field. All their big plays come from Debo Samuel breaking 8 tackles. I don't know, man. I'm a big UCLA fan. Zach Charbonnet, freaking baller. He's going to really – you talking about struggling to complete a screen pass? Not anymore with him. He's great. I love Zach Charbonnet. Great.
They have a lot of good players. They just don't have a lot of stars. Who's their all-pro player? San Francisco's got Trent, Kittle, Debo.
It's a young
Bosa.
team. DK? I'll take DK.
Yeah.
I'll take DK. I like the 2 running backs. Go ahead.
What the hell is going on here? We have Grant Cohn up here defending the Seahawks against the entire Hawk blogger crew who have been dying to bitch about this team for the entire offseason. I'm completely time warped. I think I have to go home because I'm confused. I don't know what the hell's going on here.
That is the point of this episode, Dana. That is the whole point. Evan, you were going to say something.
Grant, did you watch the Las Vegas Raiders Seattle Seahawks game last year?
I don't think I did. Tell
Did
me
you
what
watch
happened.
that
When was
game?
this? When was
They
this?
crushed
When was
him.
this?
This was near the end of the year. I don't know. This was
Okay.
like week 12, 13, something like that.
Okay.
I'll cue you into some headlines I saw. Josh Jacobs runs for
Ooh.
400 plus yards.
Okay, I remember this one. Yes.
Dominates Seattle against the run. Wins in overtime. Busts a run for 79 motherfucking yards against this garbage ass motherfucking run defense.
Yep.
This run
Yep.
defense is
It's
likely
trash.
worse than it was last year. Likely worse.
How is Pete Carroll not figuring this out? Like 10 years ago,
Defensive
this was not an
mastermind,
issue.
Pete Carroll.
I don't understand that. I don't get that.
Defensive mastermind Pete Carroll has not.
I
been
just
able
keep assuming he's going to figure it out, but maybe I'm like too removed from the situation. What's going
I'm
on?
just saying, do not underestimate how potentially bad this run defense may be. It may end this team's year early this next season.
Okay.
It's that bad.
Jaron Reed.
Draymond Jones is good, but he's not like a big dude. Like he's more of a pass rusher.
There's also one guy, Grant.
There's
It's
one
like
guy,
imagine he goes fucking down. Who the fuck is behind him? Jaron Reed? Jaron Reed?
Yeah. Jaron Reed.
Oh, what? Jaron
Yeah.
Reed?
Jaron Reed.
Retread Jaron Reed?
Hey, you got Bobby Wagner? You got Bobby?
Okay, I love Bobby, but motherfucker's like, what, 37 years old? I love you, Bobby, but please.
True.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Healthy dose of like reality. And
I guess what I feel is like run defense doesn't matter as much as it did in the past. You build defenses from back to front, not front to back. You got the best secondary potentially.
Grant,
You got a nice young offensive line, and your
teams
weapons
ran
on
down
offense
our
are
fucking-
super nice.
Grant,
Huh?
teams ran down our fucking throat last year.
The Niners, everyone,
Everybody. You
everyone.
cannot stop anybody, Grant.
And were you playing
Do you
those
know-
like too
wait,
high
wait,
safety
wait,
shit?
wait.
You were playing that too high safety shit all the time, right?
No,
Do
Grant,
you know that
Paul
Dayna
Williams
had
ran for
1,000
60
yards against the Seahawks last year?
That's crazy, man.
Grant,
Dayna was stiff arming him. Evan,
we put you at running back. You're running
Yeah.
down our throats.
that's not good.
It's bad.
That's not good.
It's really bad. As good as our secondary is,
What does Pete Carroll say about this shit? Like, how does he not have a fucking solution? What does he say?
It's weird. With the same defense 2 years ago, they were top 10 in run defense with these same players. They tried to do that.
But didn't they try to switch their scheme up and they're trying to do like more of a Vic Fangio too high, blah blah blah.
yeah,
blah, like
it did not
shit.
work.
No,
are
and
they
they changed
doing?
it back. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
I just have faith in Pete. I'm like, he'll figure it out. He's 75. He knows what he's doing. Shit, he's been around. I don't know.
See,
Like,
but
you
we
know,
love
football,
that.
what
Like,
the fuck, man? Stop the run. Put 8 in the box. What the fuck are you doing, Pete? You know what the fuck you're doing? I don't know. I trust him. I like that first round pick, Jackson Smith and Jake. Like, nice. That's money. I like Charbonnet. I feel like that like collection of weapons is serious, and your offensive line is nice. Like you have 2 good tackles. Niners can't say that shit.
100%.
here's the
You have
thing.
a quarterback who played every game last year. Niners
Yeah,
can't say
yeah,
that shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm optimistic, and I feel like the Seahawks came on quick 10 years ago too. Like no one saw that shit coming in 2012. It was just like boom, we're contenders. Young ass team.
Here's the thing. Like, and we'll probably keep going on the crossover part of this where we're cheering for each other's team or tearing down. Although Dayna will never do that. I absolutely believe Geno is slept on still. I think Geno can be a top 5 quarterback in this league. I believe that. I think he can take a huge step forward this year. He was a top 3 quarterback for a lot of last year by almost any metric. And then the interior offensive line for the Seahawks fell off and he fell off with it. But the first half he played in the 49ers playoff game, I thought was pretty peak football. And then it fell apart.
I feel like he got better every time he faced the Niners.
I do too.
And I felt like the Seahawks don't do a great job of giving him easy throws the way the Niners do for Brock Purdy.
That is right. I think JSN is going to be a huge part of addressing that.
Charbonnet.
Whether or not they scheme
Charbonnet.
people open, he just is gonna be open
Both of them.
all the time.
I've heard the Seahawks talking a lot about like they like ranked last in screen. I don't screen passes. I heard someone talk about it. Like, yeah, like you want to be good on screens. It's such an easy way to give your quarterback completions. That's what Charbonnet did at UCLA. That's what Jackson Smith and Jigma did at Ohio State. So I feel like this offense is going to be able to run the ball. It's going to be able to screen you to death. And you have serious deep threats and a really good deep thrower. And a good offensive line. I'm optimistic, man. I think it's going to be a good team.
There are 2 positions for the Seahawks that I think will make or break the team. It is defensive tackle.
Yep.
And center.
Yep.
I
There you
think
go.
those two positions will determine if those two positions play well, then I think the Seahawks. I would be
gotta be
right there
solid.
with you in saying that
It's gotta be solid.
that team is going to beat. I think they will win the division.
Yeah,
But it's a question mark.
but so who are we talking about there? I don't even know who your center is.
Evan Brown, who was
Okay.
signed by the Lions, right? Like he's nobody. He's a
Okay.
guy.
Oluwatimi is interesting though. I do know that guy.
Olu
I'd
is
like to
there,
see what he
and
can do.
That's who they want to win the job. And so in camp, that is one of the most important things. And Cam Young is the guy on the other side of the ball, rookie defensive tackle they drafted. If he plays well, great. But here's the thing that happened today, news-wise for the Seahawks. They restructured Quandre Diggs. They extended Uchenna Nwosu. They opened up $11+ million in cap room.
Okay.
So they're at 13 million when you take in, I think, the Quandre restructure, and then they have not yet added in the Nwosu restructure. So they're going to have 18 million in cap space. They needed money. They needed 5 million to sign Witherspoon. They just signed Charbonnet, and then they need stuff for injuries and they need, all that other stuff. Practice squad. Mm-hmm. Is there enough that everyone's assuming it's going to be Shelby Harris or someone like that they bring in? Is there any chance that John is going to do his thing that he's done time and again, which drives me usually crazy, but make a big move? Like he made a big move for, Sheldon back in the day from the Jets. He made a big move for Jadeveon Clowney. He made a big move for Jamal Adams. Is he going to bring in your old boy, DeForest Buckner?
Oh, Buckner? I was going to say Chris Jones. Maybe one of those two.
Do you think that's even a realm of possibility? Anybody?
He's going to be way too expensive.
He's got a contract dispute with Kansas City.
Yeah, but he's too expensive, Evan.
You could give him a signing bonus and backload it and work it out. I don't know.
Yeah, cap isn't real, but
it's not.
Into 2023, no problem.
Yeah, you can backload it. Chris Jones. What? Because you're saying like Jared Reed is not a serious solution, right? He can't start. No. So maybe, and maybe that's what the Niners are thinking at right tackle with Colton McKivitz. Like they're going to do something. But hold on, go ahead, Evan.
I just want to say from a cap perspective, like financially, they have opened up way more space than they actually need to. Like we're talking practice squad, $1 to $2 million, maybe 2.5 for the 2023 season. Witherspoon, $5.5 million max at number 5 overall. I've looked at previous number 5 picks. It's not that crazy type of money. They have like $10+ million in cap space, that more than which they need is what I'm trying to communicate. Like there's something happening here. Maybe they just plan to roll it over. That'd be weird, but
that'd be weird. Why would they restructure to roll over?
I know it's a pessimistic view, but my hunch is something is going to happen here, and they're not going to pay fucking Shelby Harris like some big crazy bag.
They could pay Shelby Harris as much as 7 or 8. Isn't that possible?
Really though? Like
I don't want them to, but isn't that possible?
What, a 1-year deal?
I mean, like Ndamukong Suh was signing like $8 million 1-year contracts. I'm not saying Shelby Harris is Ndamukong Suh, but
what about Suh?
That would be so lame.
I've been wondering about Suh.
Is he going to cost $8 million now? He can't be cost more than $5 million.
Money, man.
Suh would be perfect for you guys.
Suh likes money and he likes skipping training camp. So,
and he likes states with no taxes.
Yeah, he's a savvy money guy, man.
Don't we all? My dumbass lives in California.
I'll say this though, Chris Jones was the name that came to mind as well for me.
I can't imagine there's 0.0% chance of that.
I can't. Now, you guys listen, I covered the AFC West too. I can't imagine the Chiefs just letting him be traded out. I just don't see it happening. Their defense was such a problem for so long, and they finally got it clicking. They're not going to let him go. They let Frank Clark go.
Okay.
They're not going to let him go.
But what about Buckner, who's actually more of a run defender than even Jones is? And what about Chase Young? Those are two.
No,
I don't
on
think
Chase Young.
Chase Young makes any real sense because he's more of an edge player, and I think that doesn't really address their need. But those are the two names that come to mind for me.
I would say yes on DeForest Buckner. I still can't believe the Niners got rid of him. I think he's a great player. I think he's an underrated player. He's an Iron Man. He's good against the run. He's good against the pass. He's like a leader. The Niners chose Eric Armstead over DeForest Buckner. Eric Armstead can be the most dominating player on the field, but he only does it like 2 or 3 times a year. The other times he's like pacing himself, or I don't even know. Like Buckner gives you everything he has every play. I love players like that. You should definitely go get DeForest Buckner. Do that. Super Bowl.
That has to be one of the moves that they loosely.
It's so good.
They picked between one or the other, and they picked wrong. It's very clear they picked wrong.
And they still try to justify it. Like, I don't know. They don't. They're still trying to justify the Trey Lance trade. Like, yeah, you know, we just gave away 3 first-round picks, burned them, put them on fire, never used them. But who cares? We got Brock. Like, you wouldn't have won the Super Bowl if you had drafted Penei Sewell. Like, you wouldn't. They're like, that's fine. We're gonna win one eventually. Who cares? We came close.
You don't want Parsons on one side and Bosa on the other?
Apparently
Parsons
not.
won after that pick.
Ooh,
Yeah, he certainly did.
Can we talk about the Bosa news that came out today?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Ooh.
What's he going to be looking for, Grant? Are we talking like mid-20s, high 20s, 30s?
What?
Low 30s?
Oh, mid-30s. Like quarterback money, man. Like mostly guaranteed quarterback money. And what's funny is like the Niners are these tough negotiators. They have Parag Marate. They make you wait, and they like bring out all your insecurities. Then what are you going to say to Nick Bosa? What are you going to say? You were just a defensive player of the year. Like I think all his agent has to do is like, you just call us when you're ready to pay us what the market says we're worth. And until then, we're just going to wait. So I think the Niners, they'll probably just pay him in a week. Maybe a week. What are they going to do? Actually not pay him? Like that would be the weakest move you could do. We can't afford Nick Bosa, everyone. Like, great, sweet. They'll pay him. He's just chilling until then.
Yeah. He's going to get a bag.
Yeah. He's going to get quarterback money, man. He's going to be one of the highest. He's going to be the highest paid defensive player ever.
You know what? He's going to make a bigger bag than Geno Smith by quite a bit, actually. Which
Not
is
even close.
To think about.
And the Niners keep bragging about their quarterback room like it's so cheap. Like, dude, you're spending franchise quarterback money on a player who doesn't touch the football. But, you know.
Yeah.
That's cool. I would trade him.
You would trade Nick Bosa?
I would trade Nick Bosa. I don't think it's smart to spend quarterback money on a non-quarterback. I think that market at the end is getting crazy. Like, there's so many good edge rushers who are on the market right now. It's almost like the running back position. Like,
I think the bigger question for the 49ers is not that. Do you trade Debo or Ayuk?
Debo. He's older.
You're not.
I think Ayuk's getting better. I mean, Debo's great, but I feel like Debo, is he getting better? Or was 2021 his best year? Ayuk's getting better. Ayuk's 25.
Grant, this is the right.
I've
got a question for you. Does Debo show up this training camp in shape?
They said he will. They said that Kyle said today that Debo's been sending him pictures of himself without a shirt on, that he looks great.
He's been sending selfies.
He said that. He literally said that he's been sending him topless selfies and then he looks great. So I don't know. I guess
those are AI generated. You know that though, right?
True. I've been sending Kyle topless pictures too, but he didn't say shit about that.
I mean, you know he likes that 5'7",
nice.
132-pound build, man.
Thank you. Been doing some pull-ups. He wasn't impressed.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the lighting.
What is the week?
I think I'm better looking than Debo. Oh, Debo.
That's a take.
I think I'm better looking than Debo. I'm saying it right now.
I don't know how to respond to that. That's so funny.
He's a good-looking guy too. But nah, he can't. I mean, look at the sexy stubble. He can't mess with that. This beautiful fade. No. No, you can't, dude. It's too much. I'm sorry, Debo. Sorry, man.
Grant.
He blocked me on Twitter. So I take shots all the time. Yeah. I take shots as much as possible. Oh, now you block me? Okay, I'm better looking than you. Dayna, what's up? Sorry.
I would know you're fine. So we've been asking everybody this, but who's your surprise cut? Who do you think this is going to be the cut that's going to piss off the fan base?
Oh man, that's a tough one. I think they might trade Elijah Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because he's like a starting running back who's going to get lost in the shuffle here
behind. Yeah, McCaffrey.
I mean, he could start for the Rams like right now. So I don't know. He could be one. But I don't think Niner fans care because they have McCaffrey until he gets hurt week 2. That's the Niners. The Niners do that with their running backs. They find a way to get them hurt too. It's not just the quarterbacks.
Everybody gets the running backs hurt though.
And McCaffrey is like known for that.
Yeah.
So
he's like, yeah.
Here's a take. I don't think CMC is significantly better than Elijah Mitchell in that offense. I don't think the 49ers are that much better. when Elijah Mitchell was healthy, I think he gave them everything they needed.
That's how I felt at first, but after watching McCaffrey, I come to appreciate him. Like as a running back, when you hand him the ball, there are a lot of running backs who are better than him. But what he can do with that plus the receiving, I don't know that there's that many running backs who can do that. And when you have a running back who's that good of a receiver and that, above average as a running back as well, it's hard to stop the offense. I mean, I think he was the main reason they were scoring so many points down the stretch. I think just the bind he put them in. I felt like he immediately became the alpha on that offense. Like, Debo, thank you so much. Ayuk, you're great. Kittle, but this is now McCaffrey's team. And when they traded for him, I was like, really? Like another check down? Like that's all Jimmy does is check down. How many check down threats can you have? And by the end, I was like, okay, no, that kind of a dual threat at running back is great. That's like, Marshall Faulk, Roger Craig. I know he's not big like that, but he does have, as long as he's healthy, he has like a Marshall Faulk impact.
As long as he's healthy.
I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't. But down the stretch last year he was, and it was crazy.
All right. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, why are you guys so down on the Seahawks? Why am I the most enthusiastic person about the Seahawks here? What?
Right?
I don't understand. I thought you guys were going to agree with me on that one. I thought I was trying to win points with you guys, and I didn't expect pushback.
Not in this group. It's only me that would agree with you.
Thank you, Dayna.
I've got a question for you, Grant. You said okay. Seattle was going to win the division, right?
Yeah.
How many wins do you think they end up with?
12.
12 wins?
Yeah, I think the Niners like 10 or 11.
Okay. And Rams come third, I assume?
Yeah. I look at their roster on defense. I don't know who the hell 7 of those guys are. Like, who? I'm sorry. Aaron Donald's a great player. Matthew Stafford, when his arm, but like I don't know who's on that team.
I mean, people forgot
like they're rebuilding.
They don't have Jalen Ramsey anymore.
They traded him.
I know.
They don't have a lot of players anymore.
I know.
No.
They offloaded.
But they got Ben Skoranek, so watch out.
I do wonder
who's
if Aaron
their running
Donald
back?
gets traded
Who's their running
during
back
the season.
I don't even know who
they should.
Back is.
I have no idea who their running back is. They haven't had one since Todd Gurley injured his knee.
What you're going to see is Evan's love child, his daddy actually over there, Sean McVay, fold under a losing team. He almost quit the first year he had a losing team, and now he's come back, and he's going to lose even worse, I think, this year. And I think
his team sucks.
I don't think he'll last after the season. I think he'll walk into the sunset because
he should go get a bag to talk on TV before people think he sucks.
Oh,
I'm saying like Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. No one's paying him to talk on TV. Like you need to strike while the iron's hot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fair. From like a career perspective, yeah.
Yeah, just from like a perception perspective.
Sure. No, I agree.
Yeah.
And McVay's mentor was Gruden. That's who he came up with. And Gruden had a really similar career where he was this like hotshot boy wonder who won with Tony Dungy's team. He took the bag and broadcasting, then he came back and he sucked.
Jeff, whatever happened to John Gruden? He was coaching the Raiders. And then was it sorry. What happened to John? Oh, it was those emails. Oh, my bad. Sorry, John. Sorry, you guys got really uncomfortable for a second. I was just going to make fun of John for being a racist, but it's okay.
You totally should.
I mean, like, good job, John.
Well, you still got Nick Bosa.
I don't root for this team. I said I would trade him.
You did say that.
I think we should all celebrate a moment of improvement for the NFL, which is the Commanders getting sold officially.
Oh, thank God.
No doubt.
I'm so happy.
Are they going to change their name for the 3rd time in 3 years? I
don't care, man. It is ding dong. The bitch is dead. Like that guy was so bad for the NFL. I think if Jerry Jones, is out of the NFL, that'd be the next best thing. I think that guy's awful for the NFL, but man, that guy was awful.
Every owner wants to be Jerry Jones. Like Jed York looks at Jerry Jones and is like, teach me. How can I be like you? How can I win nothing and make so much money? Teach me.
I will never forget when Jed York sent out a personal apology tweet after the Seahawks
10 years ago
stomped their asses on Thanksgiving evening. I will never forget.
So weak.
That's my primary Jed York memory.
Yeah.
Ingrained in my brain, and Jed York forever has been dignified as a loser mentally
Yes.
in my brain because of that tweet. Literally.
Yeah.
Plus, because he's daddy's boy. Like,
Yeah.
that's like for him to come out and make his name for himself by apologizing.
It was so embarrassing.
Like, yeah, like that effort wasn't good enough. Jed, have you looked at yourself in the mirror? What kind of effort you giving today, dog? You gave a good effort on those hot dogs, huh, son? Like, what are you talking about? The effort.
What did 49ers fans think of him?
They like him now. They were mad at him during the Chip Kelly years, but everyone in Ninerville is super happy, man. They act like they won 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls. I feel like I'm in La La Land over here. I don't get it. It's participation trophy central. This is a team with 5 Super Bowl trophies, and they act like they've accomplished something the last few years. Like, I'm sorry, there used to be a higher bar here, but it's the York effect. That was the DeBartolo years. It was a whole different group.
Why didn't
honestly?
What? Why didn't they keep Jim Tomsula longer?
They didn't give him a chance. So they have this guy, Parag Marathe. He's been like running the Niners finances for 20 years, and he runs Leeds United now. And he did an interview with like Business Journal or something. And he was like, pat himself on the back. And he was like, well, we know that we can be successful with Leeds United because we inherited a lemonade stand with the 49ers and turned it into a Fortune 500. It's like, whoa. You inherited the best franchise with the most iconic brand and 5 Super Bowls, and you've added fucking none to that, but you have made a lot of money because all football teams have made a lot of money I don't know. That's how the Niners act, like they've improved upon their past. Get the hell out, because they built Levi's. Levi's sucks. You guys know that. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what you call it, Lumen or whatever it is called now, but that's a great stadium downtown. It's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Levi's, terrible. They should have Super Bowls at Lumen, not at freaking Santa Clara. How cold is it really in January? It's February. It's not that bad.
It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Don't ask
Evan,
get it, but it's not that bad.
It's just dark. It's not cold. It's just dark.
It is dark. It gets dark at like 3:30. I don't understand that.
It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah,
so
right. What are you gonna do?
I promised Grant we would keep him on for no longer than an hour. We're coming up on an hour here. I do want to say, if you haven't seen on Grant's Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, he's got a pinned tweet. I'm going to still stick with tweet from Jimmy Ward, and Jimmy Ward's on doing a reel or stream, whatever. And he's talking shit about all sorts of stuff. He's like, this Grant Cohn guy, he just like, he was ripping me. And then he saw what I could do at safety. And then I just got to say, he's kind of an a-hole, but Grant Cohn, like, he treats everybody the same. He spits truth, and I can't say it because I'm on the team. I'm in the locker room, but he treats everybody the same, and I respect that. I like that guy. I got to say, I don't think you can get a better compliment than that.
Yeah, God love Jimmy Ward, man. I love that man. He's a great dude. Thank you, Jimmy.
Congratulations for what you've accomplished, Grant. Tell people where they can find you, where the show is, how often it is on, and where should they follow you?
Well, I write for SI.com. I write the Niners site, SI.com/NFL/Niners. And I'm on YouTube a lot. I'm on Twitter. And now it's training camp. I'm really proud of my training camp coverage because most of the year I'm just a shit poster. Let's be honest. I'm a troll. I'm really like getting under Niner fans' skins. But for this month, I feel like I don't really break news, but it's training camp. And everyone wants to be there, but not everyone can be there. And it's like the English major in me comes out. It's like, show, don't tell. Use your descriptive words. And most sports writers suck at that. Like all they do is like give their opinion or like crunch numbers or they do a lot of telling. So it's like my time to be like, okay, gather around the fire. Let me tell you what happened today at practice. It's a lot of fun. So if you want to see my coverage, I'm on YouTube. I'm on Twitter. I'm on SI.
Grant, can I ask you one last question? One last parting question?
Sure.
George Kittle.
Okay. That's a statement.
Is he as good as people say? Because I'll tell you this. The Niners fan base, they're in love with this man. And I'm not sure he's as good as people think.
Okay.
So I want to know your perspective.
Like, I would take Travis Kelce over him. I don't think he's the best tight end in the league. I don't think he's the blocker he used to be. But I do think that he's been heavily held back by the quarterbacks on this team, just like Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. Like if you put George Kittle on the Chiefs, his numbers would be so much better.
Let me ask
So
you
much
this.
better.
Over the next 4 years, forward thinking, so not retroactively, over the next 4 years, who has a better career? George Kittle or Will Dissly?
Is that a serious question?
Dead ass.
How did Will Dissly get in the chat? What just happened? Is this like
if Will Dissly had
is
been
this like an inside joke? What's going on here?
If Will Dissly had been healthy the past few years, George Kittle, his name would be non-existent.
Is this a bit? I'm sorry. Will Dissly stats. I don't even know who the fuck Will Dissly is. Will Dissly stats. I'm not to spell his name. Okay, hold on. He had 34 catches last year.
Yeah, Grant, underutilized tight end. Per reception stat. He is one of the leaders. Okay.
Fuck, man. Yeah. 131 quarterback rating when targeted.
Grant, wow. You talking about underutilization?
Holy shit.
Holy shit, Will Dissly.
Yeah, no, hey, now that you pointed it out, I'm taking Dissly, man. I got to take Dissly.
Thank you.
Kittle's all about himself. Dissly's a team player.
Thank you. I've been striving for this recognition for this man.
Thank
He's
you.
such a selfless player.
It sounded crazy at first, but when I looked at the numbers, like, Evan's right.
Thanks, Grant. Appreciate
George
that.
who?
George who? George Kittle is honestly like number 4, number 5, top best tight end in the NFC West. Like he's honestly not that like.
When is Dissly gonna get the bag, Evan? Because it's overdue.
He just got paid actually a pretty good bag. Was it last offseason, guys?
Yeah.
He's not a materialistic guy either, right? He willingly took less money to keep the Seahawks good. You got to respect that.
He left.
Is Noah Fant going to take his spot or no?
Oh, I think Noah Fant's gone after this year, to be quite honest with you. They're not going to invest $20, $25, $30 million in the tight end position. They're just not going to do it. So.
All right. Well, it was fun talking about Will Dissly.
What was that?
It was fun talking about Will Dissly.
Yeah.
I don't know who he is. What number is he? 82?
Evan
84.
doesn't know. Evan has no
87.
idea.
102. I don't know. I've never seen him catch a pass. Does he have long hair?
His jersey
is he Jewish? I heard he was Jewish.
He went to University of Washington. He went to UW. Okay.
Oh, local kid.
He's a local kid. I don't know his number on his jersey, but I know his number.
You know what Doug Baldwin's number was?
89. Of course. Yeah. Great player.
So
Stanford.
That's Will Dissly's number.
They didn't retire that?
I'm gonna let Grant go because we've kept him longer than we said. For Evan, Jeff, Dayna, if you guys want to stay on, we'll cover a few more things. Grant, man, this was so much fun. Thanks for coming on. Love to do it again.
Let's do it again before the Niners and Seahawks play.
Exactly. We got to bring you on for a pregame show or a postgame reaction.
Evan, you need to be more drunk next time. They billed you as drunk. Yeah, I thought you were sober.
I'm really.
You could have. So next time, me and you. Cheers.
Cheers, brother. Looking forward to it.
This was
Take
fun.
care.
See you guys.
Thanks, Grant. That was wild.
That guy's awesome.
I love that man. I'm a Grant Cohn fan. I really am.
Hold on. I'm seeing in the chat that people are like, oh, someone said that he pandered to this group. No, you guys go watch his Twitter. Everything he said is how he feels. He tweets it all the time. Yeah, all the time.
I used to get really annoyed with him. Like I thought I put him in the David Lombardi category, which by the way, one of the things that I really have come to love about Grant is that he and Lombardi clearly have beef. I didn't want to make him talk about it on air. Although
sort of tried,
but Lombardi is like a fanboy who's become a reporter and Grant's not. And Grant will call things out. And like, even today, I think Grant quote tweeted Lombardi and said, "Cry for me," or something along those lines. Like, and Lombardi drives me absolutely nuts. He's
the worst.
He is just a 49ers fan, takes the party line, like everything.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
Like, how does that man still have media credentials with the Niners?
Grant?
Yeah. Like,
because he has the power. I mean, he's been around for forever.
Like, that man is towing the line. He's got to be. Am I wrong?
The Seahawks might have taken away his.
There is zero chance that the Seahawks, that Pearson would have allowed him to keep credentials. Mm-hmm. Zero chance.
Dave Pearson would have hung him on a cross. There's no chance. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all.
Like,
but man, like, your Disley question though. Thank you for that.
What about it?
We almost didn't get a chance to have that moment.
I just think he's honestly one of the most overlooked players in the NFC West and the NFL. I just think George Kittle gets way too much credit. So,
and on that note,
it's about to be training camp tomorrow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
We will find out tomorrow. We have not yet heard about PUP, correct?
Yeah, it came out today.
It did?
Wait.
Oh, not for Seattle. It didn't. No. Other teams. Sorry. No, Seattle shouldn't come out yet.
So
no, it'll be tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be tomorrow.
Among the moves we didn't talk about that happened, Alton Robinson got cut.
I know.
Did you hear that, Evan?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't remember which team he was with.
Alton Robinson was on
Alton Robinson for the Seahawks. The guy, Josh Cashman, is going to be very disappointed that you've forgotten who he is.
He got cut today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a guy that had 5 sacks as a rookie, and
no, but I thought for some reason we had let him go earlier. Maybe I'm just hallucinating.
That's fair.
The new Nash Jones.
I honestly forgot he was a Seahawk. I'm just going to be honest with you.
Well, he hasn't played.
He's been injured for a while. Yeah.
I think it's injury related. They kept alluding to that his knee, I think it was, or wasn't responding. And I heard he just wasn't able to bounce back.
Yeah.
So Evan and I did most of the talking there. I want to, for Jeff first and then Dayna. I mean, I am really curious about what your honest impressions are of this cap space that the Seahawks have created. What are you expecting to happen?
I think they're going to bring in some veteran defensive linemen. And I think it's a clear hole of the team. My first instinct is what Evan tweeted today. I'm wondering if there's a trade. Because the timing is really curious. Because Evan tweeted this out and we were talking on text today. You could have restructured Diggs at any point of the offseason. And there's a lot of reasons why you would have done it in March when free agents were aplenty and you wanted cap space to compete for defensive linemen. And they were very aggressive. And like Evan said, they're about 5 or 10 million more than they needed to be. And Shelby Harris is the one guy everyone seems to point to. But Shelby's been on the street since they cut him before free agency. So that was March 10th or something. And no one signed him. And he's not a guy that's going to command $10 million. So I don't think his price point's very high. And players of his kind of point of their career usually sign for $3 million. So one of the names I was wondering about today, not a trade target, is Ndamukong Suh, which funny enough, you guys brought up when Grant was on. And he's a guy who signed last year late with the Eagles. He's been signing later in off seasons because he's at the point of his career. If he's talked about it, he doesn't really want to go into training camp anymore. And he fits a lot of what the Seahawks need. He's from the Pacific Northwest. And you put him in this defensive tackle rotation. I think you could potentially get him and Harris, who kind of do different things. And Harris is a little redundant to what they have. I think they need more of a run-stopping player. So I have to imagine, because you look at their team, and Grant talked about it. They don't have, Brian pointed out that article where they were ranked the 6th best future roster. You talk to personnel people about the Seahawks, they're very optimistic because they're not like us. They don't realize that Josh Jacobs game. But you look at their roster top to bottom, they're ascending at levels that a lot of other teams aren't. So it's hard not to think it's that one spot, but maybe I'm missing something.
Could I just add in a little layer here? Just to add more info on the cap stuff. I think it's really important for fans to understand that it's exactly what Jeff said. It's not only the timing of this, but it's the logistics of a restructure. So keep this in mind. When a player gets restructured, this is a win, only win for the player. Okay. So it takes the base salary, the player's base salary. So spread out over 17 games, say it was $5 million, spread out, divided over 17 games. It takes that base salary, it reduces it to a minimal number, and it turns it into a signing bonus. Now, why is that good for a player? It's immediately fully guaranteed cash up front paid to the player immediately instead of a per game basis where he might not get if he was injured or similar. So the team, what I'm trying to communicate is the team John Schneider, Matt Thomas could have come to Quandre Diggs 4 months ago and said, hey, we want you to restructure your deal. And Quandre Diggs couldn't sign fast enough because it's literally only a positive thing for the player. Something feels like it must have happened recently to indicate that this was needed. Like it's exactly what Jeff communicated. They have more than enough cap space to fit the absolutely required moves that are necessary in the short term. I'm not promising anything.
Wait. The way this usually works, yeah, it does. And I want to poke on this a little bit and see if I'm understanding this and thinking about this right. So usually Seahawks don't create cap space when we're signing a player. Usually they sign a player first, then they clear the space to make room for the contract. That's usually the order, right? And so they don't usually make the move to clear space until they need to. And that usually happens after they've signed somebody. And so that would add more credence to the idea that they're going to trade, because in a trade situation, am I right that they would actually need to clear the space first?
Yes. 100%. Because
Jeff, you're on mute. You're still on mute.
You remember the Sheldon Richardson trade? The day of the trade, reports came out. The first thing that came out was Doug Baldwin and someone else had to, and I think it was Russell, had to redo their contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So that's usually just like a telling flag, because when they signed Draymond Jones, I think they ended up cutting some defensive linemen the next day, like Brian indicated. And that's why I don't think like Shelby Harris, who's a guy who's been sitting out there, unless he's asking for stupid money, like I don't think it's him that they would have made that move for.
There's like legitimate logistical steps that have to go into play here. Like they have to restructure the player, get the player to sign to the contract, publish it into the NFLPA system, and then have the league office officially record it on the wire. Okay. For them to officially have the cap space to absorb a new contract, something like that. So again, not promising anything, but it's just the timing is very suspicious. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Dayna, some of the names that have come up, we've talked about Ndamukong Suh. We've talked about Shelby Harris, who, by the way, is a pretty good run defender. He's not a nose tackle, but he is a good run defender. People in chat and others have talked about Vita Vea. Is another name that's interesting. We've talked about DeForest Buckner. I think it's not likely preseason, but at some point, I don't think it's crazy that Aaron Donald will be on the trading block. I'm not saying
it's already been brought up,
but I think it's possible. What is your gut? I mean, Chris Jones, I'm sorry, I'm leaving that out. I don't think there's a chance, like zero. I think there's no chance of even worth talking about that. What's your thought? What do you want to see happen?
I agree with you on Jones. I just don't see Kansas City letting him go. And if they do, it's because he has dug in and said, I won't play there. Like it's something that major. Right. And so I think the trade makes the most sense. I also think the fact that we have 13 cornerbacks right now on the roster.
That's where I was going next.
Something. Yeah. I think that says something too. And I've seen in the chat, people are like, what about Trey Brown? Trade him. Yeah. So you look at some of these teams that are rebuilding, right? And we have all these young cornerbacks. We have kind of a bevy of young players to kind of choose from that maybe, aren't stars that they would keep. But so a trade does make sense. It does seem like a specific amount of money also, right? Like they knew how much they had to have. That seems like, that makes sense too. I don't want Ndamukong Suh anywhere near this team. That's just, and as I told you guys in chat before, I'd sell my oldest child for 1 year of Aaron Donald in Seattle. So, that's just the defense lover in me, but I think you're right. But I think that with the thought process of this team, they're not looking to trade for someone for 1 year. I don't think they're looking, this is not a Super Bowl year for Seattle. So I don't think they're going to go after a 1 year rental where maybe much like the Rams did when they were just chasing that ring because they knew what they had. And so it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder a little bit about, Vita Vea a little bit. I just don't think that. Yeah, but then, I'm sorry, this comes into my head too. I don't mean to wander, but then you have to look at, are they looking at multiple positions? So are they looking at 2 or 3 players within this price range that they can go then and pick up? Because they did release 3 players today.
Yeah.
So how much space do they need? I don't know. I would prefer they go get a mid to upper talent player that they can sign for 3 years. I just am not interested in a 1-year rental, even though I love Aaron Donald. I'm not interested in that.
I totally hear you. Evan or Jeff or Dayna, anyone knows this. How do we figure out whether the Seahawks can fit a player's contract under the cap who's been traded? Because I know like trading a player is pretty negative to the trading team's cap space, right? Like the salary, the bonus all comes due that year, right? Or something along those lines. So how do we figure out, is Vita Vea even a possibility to trade for?
Yeah. So let's
like a true cost of a player. Yeah.
I almost wonder if I can share my screen, but I'm a little worried about what is on my tabs. So let me put it this way. It's just like work stuff. That's
Kyle Shanahan porn.
No, it sounded much more inappropriate than it actually was. So the long story short is the signing bonus, remember, is paid by the team that signed him to that contract. Okay. So the receiving team, forget about signing bonus. Okay. So we're looking at the Vita Vea contract. I'm looking at it right now on Over the Cap. 2023, there's a $5 million signing bonus proration that's pretty much throughout the rest of his contract. Forget about all signing bonus. The only things you need to worry about are base salary and any per game roster bonuses. So for Vita Vea, 2023, with the Bucs, he has a $1 million base salary, $5 million signing bonus, and a $500,000 per game roster bonus divided by 17 games. Okay. So basically, if the Seahawks were to trade for Vita Vea, they would pay the 1.08 mil base salary plus the $500K per game roster bonus for a total cap hit of 1.5 mil. So it's basically everything but the signing bonus, which is, remember, paid by the team that signs him to the contract.
But then with Vita Vea, he next year makes $15.5 million base, and then $16 million the year after, then $17 million.
Correct.
So you're signing up for that with someone like him.
Exactly. It's really just the base salaries that you're taking on, assuming there's no contract, new contract restructure or negotiation.
So then DeForest Buckner, if I'm hearing you right, so he is 13 point. He's almost 14 million base with a $1 million roster bonus. So he seems like the only way you could trade for him is if he restructured his deal.
Or just signed a new deal. Because remember, he signed a new deal, I think, as a part of the Colts trade. It was 4 years, $84 million. 2024 is the last year of his deal, contract year. It wouldn't be unreasonable for him to be like, hey, as a part of a trade, I want a new contract. And they would drop that number significantly in 2023. So I think DeForest Buckner, especially with the state of everything going on with the Colts, I don't think it's like a crazy possibility, like financially.
Intriguing.
I mean, he's 29 years old, guys. Like he's in his prime. He's going to want.
He is an all-pro level player.
Yeah. Yeah.
But with the Colts, I mean, they have their new quarterback, and yes, they have a lot of holes, but they aren't that far off. Why would they get rid of such a piece like that? I mean, unless are they in cap trouble? Like that doesn't make sense to me. Like you look at the Bucs, and the Bucs the Buccaneers, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Do you see who's throwing our who our quarterback is this year? We're starting over from the bottom. So I don't know. I don't know that the Colts make sense to me, but I would love to have him. And I'm not saying I wouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's where I would probably disagree with you, Dayna, is I don't think the Colts are competing for anything legitimately in the next 1 to 2 years. I think they're more of a 3 to 4
years. I see too, but yeah, that's fair.
I'm with Evan on this one. Like all the good quarterbacks are in the AFC. There's so many good teams. Like 7, they got Anthony Richardson, who's the biggest project. Like he could be great, but they might be terrible for the next few years. And
there's no guarantee Anthony Richardson's going to be good. Right?
No, they could easily end up in the situation Arizona was in. Like Richardson comes out and sucks this year, which is a distinct possibility.
Yeah.
They could draft Caleb Williams next year, and like the Cardinals did a couple of years back.
So, I mean, for what it's worth, Buckner's name was a trade candidate all off season. Like this was someone that came up all.
I didn't hear that.
So, he's claimed it's not an issue. Blah blah blah. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a long. People have been talking about it. Seahawks Twitter and patrons and other folks. I've basically said whatever we have nowhere near the room we'd need under the cap. Now it's at least a question. Now, I mean, the most likely still feels like, honestly, signing someone like Shelby Harris. And I think Jeff's point about maybe they double dip and get another just run stuffing veteran, that feels plausible. I mean, I think Jaron Reed already a little bit fits that. But look, let me ask you this way. There are 13 friggin' cornerbacks on this roster. A lot of them are good. It's not just numbers. There's a lot of, like, even Artie Burns, who we will like, ha ha ha. Artie Burns is pretty good. He started like a decent amount of games for like the Bears and the Steelers before that. Is this team a quality defensive tackle away from being a contender? Like, if they turn around tomorrow and they add Vita Vea, or they turn around tomorrow and they add DeForest Buckner, is this team a contender?
A contender, yes.
In this watered down NFC, I would say yes.
That's exactly what was giving me my point. It's like in this NFC, yeah, I think that they could be. Now, maybe just a deep playoff run, but still, I mean, a contender to get to the Super Bowl, I think so. I mean, who do they have to go through? Right?
Yeah, they're Philly, they're San Francisco, and then it's like Seattle, Dallas, Detroit, and then who else is there?
This is where I start going. I would change my tune about. I mean, honestly, part of it was just fun with Grant taking the opposite perspective, but part of what I've respected about the 49ers is they're just stacked at so many parts of the roster. And they're good at rushing the passer. They're good at defending the run. They're good in, like, their linebackers are good in coverage. Their safeties have been pretty good. They have cornerback as a weakness, but they just don't have that many weaknesses. In offense, pretty much the same thing. I would say that if the Seahawks get a quality interior defensive lineman, I think the Seahawks have less weaknesses than the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I said it, Evan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The Seahawks have a lot of very good players. The thing that Seahawks don't have is great players. But from like 1 to like 35, like how many position groups in the Seahawks are just full of good players? It's pretty impressive considering how bleak they were. But that's the thing that always holds me back. The Niners have great players. They have the best left tackle in the league, maybe the best running back, maybe the best defensive end, probably the best defensive end, one of the better tight ends, one of the better defensive tackles, the best linebacker. Seattle doesn't really have the best at anything, but top to bottom, they're really good and really balanced. And they're kind of building like the Eagles are, because they're sort of built in the same kind of capacity. But if like you look at the top 100 list and top 50 list, like Seahawks don't have a guy in the top 50.
No, I agree. I mean, I think at the end of the season they could, but I think going into the season they don't. And here's the thing about John Schneider, folks. He knew with the number 5 pick, like he knew their biggest need. They talked about it at the end of last season. They needed to get tougher in the trenches. You know that they wanted Jalen Carter to be the guy. That. And he wasn't. They looked at, and they went and they drafted Witherspoon. And I guarantee you that they don't look at that as, okay, now we have to wait a year. John Schneider he wants to have his cake and eat it too. And so I think his wheels immediately started spinning about, okay, how do I go get a kick-ass interior defensive lineman?
It's this simple. They're not currently contenders with the current interior defensive line. They're just not. They're not. They're a year away. They're 2 years away. 2024 likely, if they add reinforcements. But if they seriously want to compete this year and if they're honest with themselves and they have integrity, they're not there this year. They need to add there. And maybe it's the Stiggs restructure that's indicative of something that's going to happen. But I think let's be honest with ourselves. Like this interior defensive line, it's what I said earlier. I really don't think it's an insanely pessimistic view or anything. This interior defensive line could be worse than last year.
Yeah.
If not likely.
I have to ask one other question on this. And I know, Evan, you may need to drop. Feel free to if you need to. Al Woods threw some shade. You guys saw this?
That was bullshit. That was complete bullshit. New
you
team.
Tell me what he said. I didn't read the comments.
That was total new team, like new car smell.
Yeah, he's pissing about the defense.
Tell everybody what he said.
What'd he say? Tell me.
He said that he got really jealous watching other teams play like attacking style of defense, even though Robert Saleh came from Pete Carroll and he played in this defense before. He said he got tired of sitting back and reacting. And the reason he signed with the Jets was to play in an attacking system that he was infinitely jealous of, which every player said about the Seahawks 3 years ago. And last year, everyone said Vic Fangio style is the greatest form of defense in the fucking world. And everyone hired a Vic Fangio disciple. And now a year later, it's some fucking shit defense. That was garbage. I can't believe people reacted to that bullshit.
Tell us how you really feel. That's as spicy of a take as I've heard. Who knew that Al Woods shit talking on his way out would be the thing that triggers Jeff?
Yeah. Well, he's been in the fucking defense for years.
I wish Q Jeff did this, honestly.
He probably is, but nobody gives a shit what he says, so it doesn't make it onto any kind of coverage anywhere.
But seriously, though, I think the story that we're not talking about enough is like Clint Hurd. Like Clint Hurd was brought in handpicked after we all hated on Ken Norton. Clint Hurd fucking sucked last year. That defense was a joke. Like that guy should be under the microscope more than maybe anyone in the building.
I'm so sick of being pissed off at defensive coordinators. I'm so tired of it.
Yeah.
And all I can think of is they just don't have the talent level that Seahawks fans were real used to for a long time, obviously. But at the same time, it's like, what is missing? What is the missing link? And it's infuriating. And I can't decide if it's Pete just hiring people that he really likes without looking on a bigger scope or what it is, but it's exhausting. I'm real tired of it. I honest to God, go get Gus Bradley back. Seriously.
Oh, I don't know about that. I love
just
Gus.
saying.
So here's I think Grant said something that was pretty. He said a bunch of stuff that was good, but there's a couple nuggets in there, and he went in and he listed like how many good players that Kyle Shanahan has on his team, and I think that's it's legit. And while as much as I have respect for Kyle Shanahan, I think there is something real there. And if you look back over the last 10 years, how many players on the Seahawks defense were good enough to start for other teams? I mean, I'm talking Quentin Dunbars of the world. I'm talking Trey Flowers. I'm talking Tedrick Thompson. I'm talking, like go on that, even Al Woods, right? Like,
well, look what's happened to Shaq Griffin.
Right. So my point is, I think that I think all of us feel like, man, the coaching just it hasn't just solved the problem, and I think that's fair. I agree, Jeff, that Clint Hurd should be on the under the microscope, but the talent level on defense has not been there. I don't believe you can see them play for other coaches, and they're not turning into all pros other places, and I see someone calling out DJ Reed. DJ Reed was good here. So I don't think that the coaching was the reason that DJ Reed actually, in fact, DJ Reed was let go by San Francisco. The Seahawks brought him in and made him he was a safety. They made him a corner. Like he flourished in Seattle. So I think that primarily you have to lay it at the feet of this has not been a talented enough defense. And now I think there's a case to be the secondary. If that's not a good secondary, then holy shit, something's off. it should be a really good secondary. The defensive line, the defensive edges, I think the defensive edges are good. I think between Darrell Taylor, second most sacks in his first 32 games in the history of the Seahawks franchise. The most slept on guy, I think, on the roster. Nwosu, you've got Boye Mafe, you've got the guy Derek Hall. Like, we'll see what he has, right? So there's edge guys. Draymond Jones is good. I don't think he's necessarily an all-pro or even necessarily a Pro Bowler, but he's good. He's a quality starting player. So I think there is more legitimate talent on this defense than there has been for a while, but there still are some real that interior. If your interior defensive line is shit, and this is why, forget all the trades. If Cam Young, I know how crazy it sounds, if Cam Young is good, it is a huge unlock for this team. I'm not saying he's going to be because we don't know, but that would be huge at this point. I think that's one of the biggest questions going into camp. Look how hurt Evan is by this.
It's just
he just can't do it.
I'm reflecting on our conversations over the past 8 months, and I just remember leaving last year. The number one thing we all universally, unanimously agreed on was we have to get better in the interior defensive trenches. And we are less than 24 hours. We're 15 hours away, 18 hours away from training camp start for the 2023 season. And we cannot reliably, comfortably, confidently say we have gotten better there. I can't do it. And that's bad.
I agree.
It's really bad. So,
and folks in chat saying Chase Young, he does not play interior defensive line.
I don't like saying that. I don't like feeling that way, but I'm just, it could be really bad.
Yeah, but Evan, just keep this in mind too. We have no idea what we got in those kids, right? And just remember, right. And so that is something that's the whole purpose of training camp. And then the purpose for them is to, for the front office and the coaches to evaluate them and then go after someone to fix it. So maybe they really think Hall's going to be it. Maybe they really think, Mike Morris is going to step, whatever it may be, they're going to look at it and they're going to say, nope, he's not it. We have to go get the big guy. And so I think that panicking just because we're at the beginning of training camp is probably not a logical thing to do just because you have no idea. We always say everything looks shiny on paper and then it kind of falls apart. But right now, the paper is not so shiny, but it could get much better. I think it really could get better. And that's not me being a Pollyanna. That's just me trying to look at training camp as truly what it's for is complete and total evaluation.
Well, you got your boy Mike Morris, who I know you're very excited about.
I am very excited.
We'll find out about that. I want to switch gears for a second. And again, anyone needs to drop can, but are we all expecting?
That's always a hint at me.
Well, because, dude, you are the Houdini of this podcast.
Like,
I turn around all of a sudden and you're just gone.
It's 9:33 p.m. and I'm like 7 cocktails in, and Evan Hill's still here. Okay.
I love it, dude. This is amazing. This is like bonus Evan time. All right, so I assume we are all expecting that Jamal Adams and Jordan Brooks are going to be PUP guys tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, like it would be. I would say it wouldn't be a shock, but it would be pretty close to a shock if either one of them weren't on the PUP.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So then the question becomes when Pete gets asked in his first presser about them, and do you think that there is going to be any kind of positive? Do you think we're going to get positive Pete about either one of them? Like when they're asked, do you think these guys are going to be ready for the season? Do you think this is going to go into the season? Or do you think we're going to get more conservative Pete? Like, hey, I don't think... Like, I'm wondering, basically, do you think either Jordan Brooks or Jamal Adams were going to get any reason to feel positive about them starting tomorrow?
Pete's going to keep his lips zipped. Are you kidding? If they are ready to play week 1, we won't know it until the night before the game. Like, seriously, he's going to keep that so quiet, especially about Jamal. But he has been very positive about Jamal. I haven't heard as much about Brooks, but positive about Jamal in his training camp pressers. But I think he's going to be like, typical Pete.
I think just to jump in here, I think he's going to be very dismissive around any Jordan Brooks sort of related commentary. The difference between Jamal Adams and Jordan Brooks is Jamal Adams got his bag and he's in the middle of a contract. Jordan Brooks is a pending free agent, following this year and has not gotten a bag. And if I'm Jordan Brooks, my number one priority is getting fully healthy and then showing something on the field that I still have it. It's really not giving the Seahawks a full year, to be quite honest. It's rehabilitating my body, and I think he's going to be I think Pete's just going to be. Let me put it this way: my expectation for Jordan Brooks this year is like bare minimum. I don't expect him to be a contributor this year.
Jeff,
I think that's a really good point by Evan. I didn't even think about the contract, and they got to be careful what they say because it could be used. It's one of the weaker position groups in terms of like long-term building. And Brooks is in there probably. His agent this year is really important for them. My initial instinct was I think they'll be more positive on him. The reports on him have been pretty good. He seems to be ahead of schedule. I just think Jamal is such a hard road back. And that injury is so nasty. So I think they'll be pretty dismissive about Jamal. I've heard the way John's talked about him on some of the shows. They've never really given that optimistic. They're always giving the caveats with him. Mm-hmm. So I'd say Brooks potentially they could be a little more optimistic on. I am curious, has Tariq Woolen recovered from that surgery? Yeah. What's going on with Kobe Bryant? He was out most of the offseason program with an injury. So will we see that surprise?
And Abe Lucas.
Guy? Abe Lucas is a big one. His shoulder. Yeah.
All right. I got one more thing, and then I'll let you guys go. I'm going to try to share my screen. You guys tell me if this works. We'll find out if this works or not. Shoot. Let's do entire screen 2. Okay. I think it's working. Where you guys are only seeing partials, you're not seeing names. Yes, you're only seeing stats.
Yeah.
Can you read them, or do I need to make them bigger?
I can see.
Okay. These are the stats for 49ers quarterbacks last year.
Okay.
You got one guy that's played 11 games, one guy played 9. Who do you think's who when you look at these stats?
Brock Purdy up top.
You think Purdy's at top? Jeff?
I think Jimmy might be the top. Guy. Jimmy was actually playing well last year.
Do you notice how similar these numbers are?
Yeah.
This is a big difference. One guy was throwing for 70 more yards per game. Pretty similar touchdown to interception ratio. One guy got sacked a lot more.
That's why I think Jimmy might be the top guy.
You're right. So I pulled this up because here's my thing. I have this picture of Brock Purdy playing pretty perfect football last year. I had hold him in very high regard in terms of the level of play he was able to achieve. And I do wonder if I do have this thing with the 49ers in particular, this whole decade where I just think that they're so good. And I'm like, oh shit. Even the year that the Seahawks were 2013, I thought the Seahawks were the better team, but that 49ers team scared the shit out of me. They were just tough. And I wonder if I have talked up Brock Purdy more than he really is. Is he just Jimmy Garoppolo? But Jimmy Garoppolo didn't even throw as many interceptions last year.
I just think of Brock Purdy as a dink and dunk, not going to take risky throws type of quarterback. He's not going to win you. He's Jimmy Garoppolo, but at 23 years old, from my perspective. Jeff, do you really have a different opinion on that, or are you in line with that?
I think they're pretty close. Jimmy had the back-breaking interception thing. Anytime you start to believe in that guy, he would throw the worst interception imaginable. Brock is hard to tell. He really wasn't pressured and he wasn't tested. And the one game, the Philadelphia game was the game we were supposed to learn a lot about him, and he basically breaks his elbow the first play of the game. So things are really he did have more balls and like he was had some risk that I didn't expect him, but things were just so easy for him last year. It was what Grant said. Like it's so hard to judge. He had so many wide open throws last year, especially once they put McCaffrey in there. It's hard to tell. Like you learn about quarterbacks when they're under pressure, and we really didn't see it.
Well, and to that point, against Dallas in the second game in the playoffs, he wasn't great. He wasn't terrible, but no touchdowns, no interceptions.
They were pretty bad offensively.
87 rating. So, I mean, the reason everybody like wondering why we'd spend time on this, I think these are like there's a few specific players and positions that are going to determine the outcome of this division.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of them. And if Brock Purdy, I initially thought Brock Purdy was like a Jimmy Garoppolo. I gained a lot more respect for him. I watched some of the throws he made in certain situations and third downs backed up in his own end zone and making completions. I thought he was pretty creative. I think he was better than Jimmy. If I'm wrong and he's just like a game manager guy and he's not special, this division's totally different because that 49ers offensive line did get weaker, especially on the right tackle, like massive, massive change there. And if he's not a game-changing quarterback, then all of a sudden you got a weaker offensive line with a quarterback that is coming off an injury and maybe is just okay. And then it could turn into a quarterback controversy. And then you got Trey Lance, who's a totally different type of quarterback. So like, I think things could get weird there. If he's really good, good luck to us.
Yeah, we're fucked.
Yeah. All right. We've been at it for almost 2 hours. Evan, you look like you had a thought in your head, and I will not break until I hear what that was.
Honest to God, I just had like a forecasting vision in my brain of Grant joining one of our post-game shows. Post the 49ers matchup. I was just envisioning him screaming at me, to be quite honest with you.
That was fun. And it was fun that I'm so glad you're able to join because the two of you on together is I wasn't sure that both of you could exist in the same place because I thought you might be the same person.
I like Grant. Like I actually really did. Like I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Like I think he's obviously funny. And he's obviously a little bit of a contrarian, but he's non-discriminatory. Like when it comes to like who he picks on, he's like, there's nobody that's like gonna get a free pass when it comes to who he covers and who he evaluates. And he pokes the bear. You know what? He does not give a fuck. He does not have a filter. And I'll just say this: there's a big difference because we're talking heads, we have podcasts and that's great and that's awesome. But that guy's like a credentialed media reporter, right? And it's just a little different, I think.
I don't know anybody else in the NFL that talks like that about the head coach, front office, the players, and then goes and sits and talks in front of them the next day. That's wild.
His balls are so big. They're so big.
There's just no way that would happen in Seattle. I think about Joe Fan, who also covered, did some work for the 49ers and the Seahawks. Now is a kick-ass realtor, by the way. Joe would ask mildly challenging questions, and like people thought he was like the biggest dick. I mean, Jamal Adams, Mr. Joe, he wouldn't even register relative to Grant in the type of questions he asks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Grant's in a league of his own, and I don't know how he's managed to do that.
Yeah, I think it's just different, like the way the Niners are and the way it's covered. And like he's got like more of the New York media kind of vibe. Like
Can we talk about that for a second? Is the Seattle media landscape soft?
So soft.
Oh,
Is this the impression I get? And I couldn't tell if it was just me from like a sports perspective, just sports. Like it feels very like placating and very like softballish.
A lot of that has to do with the PR teams too. Like if a PR team is like really in control, I know some of the teams in Toronto have become like that, where if you ask one of the wrong questions, they will not call for you or they will not grant you access to certain players. And so all of your questions become framed a little differently. If you look like New York and Seattle are just so different of how sports are covered. And like even when the Seahawks are doing like Joe was like the first one to question Pete on like timeouts. How bad he's been on his timeouts and challenges for years. Don't even brought that up.
Let me just ask this, Brian. How are the Mariners? Because I know you're a big Mariners fan. No, but seriously, because I have no idea. Like when it comes to
with the media.
Yeah.
Very different. Very different because the Mariners have been bad for so long. They've been much more welcoming of alternative media coverage. So bloggers and podcasters and stuff like that. There's way more integration. And also, I think some of it also has to do with how much analytics has been part of the baseball landscape. And so a lot of the analytics folks came from outside baseball and were often bloggers and stuff like that. So it is a very different vibe there. And in fact, Mariners situation in particular is kind of odd in that a lot of the folks that are kind of bloggers that cover the Mariners are super defend. It's almost the opposite of Grant. Like they're so in bed with like ownership and front office that they spend a lot of time defending them. And it's very different than like our dynamic. Right. So to me, it's a fascinating case study in if you let people in and you actually treat them with some respect and give them access, a lot of people are super appreciative and then they don't want to lose it. So they will cover you well. But when you don't, it's a kind of an antagonistic relationship. I think the Seattle Seahawks media, by and large, I think they just check, they check in and they check out. They like, what are the quotes? What did they say? What could possibly happen? And then they move on. And there's not a lot of pushback. There's not a lot of really asking hard questions. There's not like Mike Sando was groundbreaking because he actually did analysis and not just reporting.
Yeah. And that's what I liked about Joe. Like a lot of times you read like training camp observations and it's basically like a summary of what Pete said in the press conference. And just Joe would actually tell you things he saw at practice and what it meant. And you like look around some of the writers on some teams now, and it's like I can read Pete's quotes on Twitter. That's not like I don't need you summarizing that. That's not good content. And you're right. Like who's the guy? Like Mike Duger is starting to stand out. He's putting really creative content. I think he's like one of the emerging guys in that media.
100%.
I can't think of too many others that are coming up with who are asking the hard questions, who are coming up with different stories, who are breaking stories. Bob is really good at like classic old school reporting. Bob Condotta is really good, but like a lot of the new journalism, like you see it in different markets, and it's cool to see that like people like Grant can exist in these markets, and you see Stephen A. Smith and you see Skip Bayless, and sadly that's kind of where the media has gone. So someone like Grant can kind of fit into that world because he can go on a rant and he can be competent and make sense. And that's a hard thing to do.
Brian, do you have anything to say?
Not what you want me to say. I will mention there is someone in chat talking about a reporter. I'm not going to talk about that person by name, but man, there are people that are so clearly in the pocket of the Seahawks PR staff, and they honestly not. So I'll name some names. So like Bob Condotta is to me a totally quality reporter.
Yeah.
He does his job. He reports accurate information. You can trust what Bob reports. He does not do a lot of interpretation. Like there's a little bit, but he mostly just shares. So like you can pretty much trust Bob's feed. Curtis Crabtree, similarly, like you're going to get the facts and there's not a lot of BS. You don't have to like, so I respect, like, just do your job. And like, that's fine. There are other guys that have so much bravado about the fact that they know what's really going on because they've got it in with the team. And then they're freaking wrong. They don't know what's going on. And they're so arrogant about it. And I'm not going to name names there, but like those people, I really don't have a lot of respect for them. And I don't respect how they do their jobs. So like, and then there's kind of like the David Lombardis of the world that we have a few, which are fanboys who like show up as reporters. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that either.
He might be my least favorite person on Twitter.
Whoa.
He's basically a PR man for the 49ers operating as a reporter. And I just don't have time for these people who act like they invented football and every like thing they put out. Like he is, and you can tell some of the things we're alluding maybe from Grant. That's some of the things I've heard. He takes himself super seriously, and you can tell with his tweets. So I think that guy is like the worst of what the media has become.
Is there a relationship between how many selfies you post and your quality as a reporter, or just in your Twitter account overall?
It's certainly a red flag.
Oh my God. Evan, I've seen a couple selfies from you, man.
Hey man, I'm losing weight, bro. Okay.
I know.
Yeah, are you going to be like Debo and start sending us shirtless pics?
I'll send you. I'm gonna start an OnlyFans. That's what I'm gonna do.
If I start sending shirtless pics, you guys are going to block my number. That's
I don't think I've ever posted a shirtless pic. I don't think I've done that.
I don't think anyone wants to see that.
Oh, I see someone asking about thoughts. I meant to ask Grant about Tim Kawakami.
Oh man,
that was a miss.
He did block you guys, right?
He blocked me for asking like a legitimate, like just like a totally friendly question. Or
no, you made a joke.
Oh, it's like a light joke, right?
You made a joke about like the Seahawks like keeling over before the playoff game, and he's like, "I'm not talking to any bloggers ever again." And I'm like, "I think you missed his joke," and then he blocked me.
There's some other reporter that hates you, Brian. It's that national one, NFL Network.
Oh, that is Mike. No, not Mike Lombardi. It is Mike Silver. Mike Silver.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's blocked me.
He's full of it too.
I will say someone mentioned Brady Henderson. I can't believe I forgot Brady. Brady's the man. I think Brady's gold standard to me among Seahawks coverage. Like he has the perfect balance of you can trust what he's written because he does check his sources and he does some analysis beyond. I would love him to be have a little bit more there and have a little bit more point of view. Like he's not quite to a Sando or even a Joe Fan kind of level.
Yeah.
Although he's good friends with Joe, so he'd find that funny. But I really do like Brady.
I miss Shil Kapadia, man.
He was the star. He's kind of gone into like the podcasting world. I don't think that's his strength. Shil as a writer was, I think, one of the best in the whole country.
I think one of the craziest things I see, we've talked about this before. Mina Kimes, I know everyone thinks they're just kissing ass. I mean, obviously, Mina's a friend of the show. I think Mina is maybe the best sports reporter out there for the NFL. Like what she brings in terms of personality, expertise, curiosity, like understanding of like analytics and the game and the players, inquisitive about all sorts of stuff. The difference between like how good she is and how many people think she's not good is crazy to me. Like that's maybe the biggest gap to me overall in media on the web.
But do you think that's because of her information, or do you think people misjudge her based on, unfortunately, what she looks like?
No, it's absolutely because I think primarily because she's a woman. There might be other pieces to it, but like I think it's almost exclusively because of that. But I see people all the time in her mentions just like nobody cares what you say. Why? Like it's crazy. Like no one does that for Greg Bell or any of these other. So I don't know. And congrats to her, by the way. I'm expecting her first, man.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah. She's so smart and she's so talented. But it was funny to see she really set Grant off the other day when she called Kyle Shanahan the second best coach in the league. And Grant went wild. It was what caught me. That's why I'm like, yeah, I kind of like this guy. I hated Grant for years. And
did he sway you at all, Evan, on your coaching take?
That's a good question. No, I think he gave. There was one thing he said that I'm trying to think about how to phrase this correctly. He gave a lot of like preferential treatment to Pete because he said he was like older and because he has a ton of experience. And I know Kyle Shanahan's young, but like I don't know. He didn't move me much. He really didn't. And
people don't know, Evan is one of the most ageist people I know.
Not at all.
100%.
Not at all. I am non-discriminatory, but unless you hate In-N-Out. But no, I think it's a little bit of like you don't realize what you have until you don't have it. And to be quite honest with you, like I understand I have that blind sight when it comes to Pete Carroll too. You know what I mean? So I don't know. We'll see how this year unfolds.
Yeah, they're just very different styles of coaches. Pete is more of like Pete gets this defensive background label, and I understand that, but that's not what he is as head coach. And in fact, at USC, when he had more control over personnel, they were way better on offense than they were on defense. Which this whole defensive mastermind bit Evan's always pushing. That's not really been Pete, other than the Legion of Boom, which is probably more about lucking into like the greatest defense. And obviously drafting, he was a big part of that. But Pete is more of like the all-encompassing motivator, psychologist. The way he maximizes talent brings people confidence. Kyle is pure the offensive play caller.
I think that's a really fair point. I think where maybe Evan is evaluating is the coaching on the field. And I think that like Kyle Shanahan is not a CEO.
No.
Pete's a CEO.
Yeah.
Pete's like the John Harbaugh, Tomlin. Though they all have similar styles. They're consistent. They win pretty year over year. Andy Reid is kind of the best of both worlds and why he's probably become the best coach in the NFL. Shanahan wins with scheme. His scheme is so good.
Let me just say one thing. Like, shitting on Kyle Shanahan for not winning Super Bowls. Yeah, I get it. He has struggles finishing the job. But motherfucker's been to 2 Super Bowls, like in recent years. Does that not count for something?
Well, one is a head coach.
You're right. For some reason, I was thinking.
No.
But do you give it?
He's the brightest. Like McVay, all these guys came from Kyle Shanahan. Like he's like
that's
guy.
like winning Super Bowls is hard. I know I'm not breaking any, breaking news there, but like that counts for something, though, doesn't it?
Honestly, though, no. Like it counts for something. If the bar is something, yes, it counts for something. But the truth is,
like deep playoff run after deep playoff run, yes, he has struggles finishing the job, but they're still contending every year.
Do the Bills get credit for losing 4 Super Bowls in a row? Like that was as impressive of a feat as winning one, but it'll never go down in history because
sure.
Really, it's a results-based business. And so either you're winning or you're really not. And if you're not, you can be losing the Super Bowl, but really you're losing. You're one of 31 teams that didn't win the Super Bowl.
Let me put it this way. And maybe I have a more optimistic view than you guys. I think Kyle Shanahan's bound for one. I really do. Like I think he's going to get one in the next several years. Like this conversation is temporary to me. Like they're contending enough frequently enough. They have good enough rosters. They're producing enough. He's going to get one of these years. So
I think if he doesn't get one this year, I think you're wrong.
Yeah, this is sort of the window. Once Bosa gets $30 million a year, I think their cap table is going to flip upside down. And this is really their window. But I'm with you. I have a really high opinion of Kyle Shanahan, much higher than Grant does. He was always the guy when you guys were all like, McVay's the greatest. I was always the one saying, I think Shanahan's the guy.
Yeah.
But the thing he has to finish the job. And that's been the weird thing about him is he shrivels up. He punts on 4th and 1 inside the 50. He does all the stuff that we complain about Pete. And because he schematically is the best in the sport by far. Like no team creates more open throws.
I think there's legit criticism of Kyle Shanahan in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think when it comes down to going like best versus best, I don't think he's proven that I'm talking even about best coaches versus best coaches. I don't think he's been his best in those situations.
Yo, can I assault a comment here in the chat that I'm seeing that pissed me off? Divine Comedy, go fuck yourself. You have a Hall of Fame football coach. Have high expectations for your football teams, man. Seriously. Like, you believe your coach is that good? I do too, by the way. Like, obviously I criticize Pete Carroll for a ton of things, but man, this is a top premium franchise that we have the privilege of rooting for, and we should hold them to high expectations. So fuck this loser mentality bullshit.
I'm glad, Evan, you've come around to the Super Bowl's hard after all your Russell Wilson takes over the years that one Super Bowl wasn't good enough and he should have been winning 3 or 4. I'm nice to see you come around on that. That's what me and Brian were arguing for years.
I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys. Like, my approach as a fan is very different psychologically when I feel like we don't have what's the right word? Like a ticking time bomb on a franchise quarterback that we have to maximize. To me, that's where my pressure always came from, guys. I'm being 100% honest and truthful with you. It was the pressure of knowing we have a franchise quarterback. We know what his prime window looks like. It's one of the greatest competitive advantages in sports. We have to maximize that window.
Fair.
When we don't have that, it's like, let's ruin other people's days. I'm down.
The thing is, Evan, is you and I, the daylight between you and I was almost non-existent during that period because I actually it wasn't just to me that we had a franchise quarterback. It was that he was on his rookie deal and that we had the best defense, not only in the NFL, but maybe in the era. And that was only going to last for so long. And I think that was a chance to not just win Super Bowls, which is awesome and obviously great, but to actually be a dynasty, like to win 3 of 4, to be a 90s Cowboys. Like, I think that was not just a potential, but I think that should have been what happened in that time.
Yeah.
And they made back-to-back Super Bowls and were on the 1-yard line to potentially win back-to-back Super Bowls, which nobody does. And so like history could have been so different. Right. And this isn't even crying over spilt milk. It's just like, I do think that team was that good. And then as soon as that window broke apart, really after 2015, that's where you and I saw things differently. I did not feel like, oh, we have this franchise quarterback. We got to, I felt like the team was never good enough.
Yeah.
To really be a contender at that point.
And I'll just say one other thing on the 2015 year. I think we were talking about this on Twitter like a month ago. If they get past the Panthers, we all forget about that game that they were down like 31-0, came back, scored 28 points in the second half, lost by I think 3 points. I think it was 31-28 or something like that. If they get past that Panthers team, they win the Super Bowl that year. Seriously.
I agree.
They beat that Broncos team. They beat that Broncos team.
They played Arizona like that, who was in the NFC Championship. Like, I think it was the week 18 or week 17. They whooped them.
Yep.
They beat them like 38-3.
Yep.
And I think they would have smoked Denver. Peyton Manning couldn't throw a football in that game.
I'm glad we got one Super Bowl out of that era. But it does feel like what could have been, unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
All right. Last question. Eve of training camp, night before training camp starts. Is this going to be a fun season? Is this a season you're looking forward to? Like, tell me what is your feeling heading into the start of this story? Jeff, I'll start with you.
I'm going to say yes. As much as the defensive line thing does hang over, it's almost become my focus that like, it doesn't really matter because I don't think the defense is there yet. So my whole year is about. I said this before on the last show. I think that they're a year away from being a contender. I think they need to fill that spot. So I think this year to me is about the offense becoming a Super Bowl ceiling, and I don't see it in the defense yet. The secondary is there. The front seven still to me is far too low. So to me, a lot of my like big picture evaluation is purely about what this offense can be. And as Grant was saying, and we were saying, they have every position other than really center and maybe right guard kind of figured out. Like, this receiver thing is something we have not seen. Their tight ends are good. Their running backs are deep. Their tackles should take a jump this year. To me, that's my personal whole view of what the season is, because I just don't think the defense is there. And if they are that top 5 level offense, I think that's going to be really fun, even if the front seven sucks like they did last year. I think just putting Jackson Smith and Jigba into this offense and the second running back, and if Geno does maintain or take that step forward, I think that's going to be awesome. I'm going to be excited to watch them every week. If Geno takes a step back and the defense sucks, yeah, I can see this going under. But again, to me right now, my whole evaluation with this defensive line is it doesn't matter. I'm only focused on if that offense can get to that Super Bowl level quality this year.
Yeah, so I'll make a little bit of a prediction here. I think the defensive front seven is obviously going to struggle to a mightily degree. That's nothing new. We've been talking about that a lot. I think the offense is going to be like a top 2 scoring offense in the NFL. Like, I think it could be Chiefs, and I think it could be Seahawks at number 2. And I think because of that, I think their offense is going to be so good that they make a deep playoff run because of it, and that they're a dark horse NFC candidate. And I really just gut instinct, I think they make it to the NFC Championship game this year, and they'll lose at the end. They'll lose a heartbreaker because they're not there defensively yet. They're, I think, 2 years away. But this offense has the pieces to be, like, if they're out, if this offense is outside of like the top 5 of offenses this year, I'll consider that like below meeting expectations relative to the talent they have, because they're stacked on the offensive line. That left side is entirely built. Both tackle spots are absolutely set. Their receivers, probably one of the best groups in the NFL, top 3, maybe better. Running backs, one of the best groups in the NFL. Like, tight end groups, pretty damn solid. One of the best groups they've ever had. Like Geno Smith, like, what the fuck more can you ask for? So I know you didn't ask for that, Brian, but I think they're a dark horse candidate this year. I think they make a run, and I think they lose in the NFC Championship game.
I love it. I mean, I'm looking forward to this season like I haven't in a while. And what I'm most looking forward to is I still think I think people don't fully believe in Geno, and I'm hoping that he is going to put to rest any questions about what kind of quarterback he is. I think that'll just be an amazing story to continue watching. I think it was the best story in sports last year. It was definitely the best story in the NFL from my perspective. Super unique, and I'd love to see him just continue down that path. I agree with you both. Biggest story is about the offense and whether that offense can be dominant. Like, it would just be fun to have a dominant part of the team again. It was not dominant last year. It was good, but it wasn't dominant. And then I agree with on the defensive weaknesses, but there is a chance that this defense can also be fun. I think this defense can be a good pressure defense. I think they can create pressure on the quarterback, and I think that they can cover well. And I think that could turn into a lot of turnovers. And so if that happens, even if you're getting gashed on the ground, which I'm just going to hate regardless, it can be fun, man. Like the quick turn, like if you get a defense that is creating turnovers, sticky in coverage, getting some sacks, hitting the shit out of some quarterbacks, especially if it's the 49ers quarterbacks, and then you turn it over to an offense that's lethal, that would be fun, man. I would enjoy cheering for that team. Jeff, you look like you wanted to say something.
Oh, I was going to say, like, Witherspoon really fits into what you were just saying. And
yeah,
obviously don't know how he transitions, but they didn't just take him because he's a good cover corner like some of the other guys that have been taken that high. If you watch his highlights, I remember texting a couple of you guys before the draft saying, he's the most fun. He's just like a jitterbug of energy, but he's a tackling machine. Like, his first highlight when he got drafted was him just blowing up a play. So it's just, everyone says, okay, they're going to have these secondary guys, but that cornerback, if Witherspoon hits at the level he played in college, he was the most fun player on the field. So they're going to have some liabilities for sure. But just adding a guy like that with Tariq Woolen on the other side isn't just like a good trip. It's just not just like a traditional cover corner. Witherspoon makes plays that just blow, put so much. He has got some Earl Thomas to him.
Well, him, I think Julian Love, we've talked about, has tons of ability and upside. Trey Brown's a guy that was at one point a bunch of upside and now is barely talked about. Kobe Bryant, who was the starter for all the games at nickel, is barely talked about. Jamal Adams, who's none of us are expecting to even necessarily be a factor, was once the marquee name on the defense, and he could come back. Jordan Brooks, we're not counting on, but so there's a lot of, I think it's cool that there's upside and that there's reason to be positive. If they make a move to solidify that interior defensive line, watch the fuck out, man. This could expectations will skyrocket
without question.
And when have they made those moves? During training camp. That's when those moves have been made every year.
Somebody hit Dre up over DM and be like, why did the Seahawks ask you to restructure? Seriously, yeah. Somebody just be like, what they say in the conversation.
It's going to be fascinating to see. All right, boys, we are going to end it there. That is Evan Hill at Evan Hill HB on X. Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons. I am Brian Nemhauser at Hawk Blogger. It's been fun to be back. For folks that were in Slack and wanted to ask questions, apologies. We didn't think we were going to have time this week with Grant as guest. Want to thank Grant Cohn for coming on, Dayna O'Gorman, who had to drop a little early. And then everybody, thank you. Join at patreon.com/hawkblogger. Click like if you haven't already and click subscribe. We will see you all next week. We may even see you all later this week, depending on what news drops. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Take care. Go Hawks.